Today, I'm going to talk about balancing your roast profiles proportionate to methods of brewing. And I say this because I accidentally fell on an Omni roast profile for this coffee, Jamaica's. It is a washed Bourbon and Caturra blend, farm blend from Guatemala. And one that, as a sample, had lots of blood orange in it, and deliciously had lots of blood orange in it. But because I have a broad range of customers who sometimes like to brew via cafetiere or Hario dripper, but also maybe through their Sage espresso machine, I needed to come up with a way of presenting the coffee so that there is balance inside of the cup. And as I said, I happened upon a profile that I would describe as an Omni roast. So let's have a quick look. On your screen now, you will see the profile that I'm talking about. Its total roast time was 9 minutes and 50 in length. This to me is a pretty decent amount of time inside of the lorring, and what I mean by that is the amount of energy that I'm giving the roast in order for it to make something delicious inside of the cup. I have found that for me, roasting under 9 minutes, I personally run the risk of not developing the coffee as adequately and as well as I want to. And if I roast anything that is beyond 10.5 minutes, I've probably not done quite a good enough job at presenting all of the clarity inside of the roast. So I like roasts between 9 minutes and 10.25 minutes of total length, proportionate to cultivar and processing method. So at 9 minutes and 50, that is at the north end of this time period that I'm talking about. Importantly for this roast, the development time was 1 minute and 40 seconds. Now I marked first crack on the lorring at 202.5 degrees Celsius on the bean probe. And this is a temperature that I stick to for all of the coffees that I roast, because on average, I know that we are right in the peak popping cycle for, on average, most of the coffees. So that's my mark point. So from 202.5 degrees Celsius onwards, that is my first crack mark point. 1 minute and 40 seconds is getting close to the development time that I use when I'm roasting specifically for espresso, which tends to start at about 1 minute and 50, topping out at 2 minutes. Now, I'll recap. I'll go back. What do we use post first crack development time for? I liken it as a balancing mechanism. So the shorter the roast time, the more vivacity you have to the coffee, the more transparent the flavor profiles are, but there's a high level of acidity, and there's a whole bunch of really interesting things going on that can be great for filtration brewing, but maybe not so great for espresso. So the longer that you roast the coffee, you tend to go to a higher roast color, you tend to go to a higher roast temperature, and through this action you'll get more relics of the roasting process, but en route to your end point, you have the opportunity to balance those flavors inside of the cup. So 1 minute and 40 is my Omni roast zone. So 140 to 150, at which point I then get into that espresso run. As you can see by the actual profile design, it has an ever declining slope. I like that. I used to roast on that when I was on the Probat, and I do so now that I'm on the lorring. There is this pyramid heat approach in heat application. That is something that I'm using quite often, if not all of the time, in roasting on the lorring. I like the body that it creates. I feel like I have a greater aroma profile, I have more intensity of flavor in the cup, and I feel like I get greater solubility as well. Now, I've only been roasting on this for 1.5 years, so there's a lot of R&D that I haven't yet done and I need to do to be really confident, but at this point in time, pyramid heat profiling is something that I enjoy an awful lot. For those of you who like development time ratio 16.9%, I don't really talk about percentage terms any longer. I talk about time after first crack, so that 140 is more important to me than percentage terms. Time is absolute, percentage is, well, less so. Okay, so that was the roast profile. Let's have a little taste to see exactly what I'm describing and whether or not I've hit the mark, the balance mark that I'm talking about. So the expectation with this particular coffee is blood orange, kiwi, and stone fruit. So I want there to be a nice lean into those stone fruits, and I may want a touch of chocolate too. And chocolate in espresso is a nice thing. I like that. I started coffee in '99, so I like chocolates in espresso-based brewing. Not to say that this is an espresso profile. This is an Omni roast. So here goes. Okay, so yes, you get some of the blood orange, but it's a really nicely rounded blood orange. There isn't that spikiness of acidity that can be associated with that fruit. You do get some of this kiwi note, and absolutely the main thrust of the flavor in this coffee is stone fruits expressed in plums, and its purpling characteristic with, importantly, a lovely chocolate finish on it. If I was to give it a cocoa mass percentage, I would say somewhere around 45%, so what do we call that nowadays? Dark milk or something like that, but really delightful. It's got a light medium body, which is good when it comes to filter brewing, because I like some of that body in there. It's great as a cafetiere. You get loads of structure, you would get loads of structure with this. And of course, because it's edging into that medium body, you would get a lovely espresso brew out of this as well. Now, would it pair with milk? I've got no idea. I don't drink coffee with milk that often. So could I improve on the profile? Probably. You can always improve in stuff in life, and that should be your pursuit as a roaster. Constant tiny little iterations to try and make the product that you produce a better one for the customers that you serve. Did I enjoy this coffee? Absolutely. Could I brew it in any other way that would make that more delicious? Probably. The roast profile itself is a stellar one. I have really enjoyed the product that it has produced, and it conforms to my Omni methodology when I'm in that position of wanting to balance a coffee, or you could argue, I don't really know what I'm doing with the coffee, so let's just, omnify it a little bit. Anyway, I hope this video has been somewhat helpful. My intention was to describe the mindset of a roaster when he or she doesn't exactly know the direction that they want to go in, and maybe some of the methodologies that could be employed if you find yourself in that particular position. As always, if you have any comment on my approach to this coffee, do let me know in the comments below, and I will see you again next time.